Easter without Good Friday, it's a hollow celebration. Without the sham trial of an innocent man, without the mocking of the Empire's stormtroopers, without their purple robe and crown of thorns, without Pilate's hand-washing abdication of responsibility, without the religious leaders plotting, without the crowd baying, without the torturous execution of the Son of God, without all that darkness, this day makes no sense. Who will roll away the stone? Mark's Gospel tells us of a staggering alliance of all the powers of the world, where the religious leaders enlist the empire to do their dirty work. Judas has betrayed him. Peter has denied even knowing him. Even the criminals on either side mock him. Jesus issues a cry that echoes throughout eternity. My God, why have you forsaken me? Even God, it seems, is missing. It is finished. But Jesus was not alone. These are the women who stayed. These are the women who watched and who waited. These are the women who listened to the jeers and the insults of those who shouted hosannas just days before. These are the women who watched their leaders, emboldened now as Jesus was nailed to a cross, mock him. Tell him now to show some sign, to come down from the cross that they had nailed him to. They would believe if he did that. These are the women who saw Joseph of Arimathea, one of the religious leaders, go to Pilate and ask for the body. Usually, the crucified were left on their cross to serve as a grim warning. Unburied, a final cruel punishment, denied the last care of family and friends, all dignity stripped away. But none of the leaders wanted Jesus hanging there as a rallying point. The crowd were fickle. It wouldn't take much for him to become a martyr and for them to be the ones who were vilified. So they send Joseph to take the body and dump it in an unmarked grave. Out of sight, out of mind. But the women, these faithful women, have watched and endured the long Sabbath wait until they could go and perform one last duty to their Lord. As these three women, Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James, and Salome, as they go with no real hope, no expectation of finding anything other than a body to tend to, they walk through the morning gloom. They walk towards the tomb where the broken body of Jesus was hurriedly left 3 days earlier, and their question gives voice to their concerns. Who will roll away the stone? They expect everything to be just as it was when they left. It's been the Sabbath after all. No work was permitted, so any movement of the stone would have been a violation of the rules that the religious leaders were so very keen on keeping. I wonder, as we join here on another Easter morning, what our expectations really are. There's much about these women that we can relate to, I think. They've ventured out into the world for a single purpose, as others stay hidden inside. I wonder, do we share the lack of hope? Do we come here expecting to find something blocking the way? Do we journey tentatively, carrying all our fears, all our doubts and all our griefs? When they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had already been rolled back. Who could have done that? The Romans? Have they moved the body? And as they entered the tomb, they saw a young man, dressed in a white robe. He was sitting at the right side, and they were alarmed. But he said to them, "Don't be alarmed. You are looking for Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He's been raised. He's not here. Do not be alarmed." Yeah, sure. Okay. When you go to embalm the body of your friend and find instead that the stone blocking the tomb has been moved and his body is missing, the one thing that you're going to be is alarmed. It'd been bad enough, but now this. You can't even leave him in peace and death. You are looking for Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He's not here. He is risen. I wonder what those words mean to us. He's not here. He is risen. For these women, these three women, it meant more fear and more confusion. It's important to say what Mark doesn't tell us. We could have read John's account where Mary meets the gardener, the man who calls her name, Mary. It's a beautiful passage that takes us back to the very beginning, to Eden, where God walks in the garden, and it's the woman who is there to meet him. But this is Mark. What Avril read for us this morning is all there is. This is how Mark ends his gospel. Go. Go and tell the disciples and Peter that he's going ahead of you to Galilee. There you'll see him, just as he told you. So the women went out and they fled from the tomb, for terror and amazement had seized them, and they said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. And so they should be, and we should be too. Dead men don't come back to life. Everyone knows that. On Friday we stood witness at the foot of the cross with these women. We watched and we waited as the sky turned black and all the colour was drained from the world, as the curtain of the temple was wrenched in two, exposing an empty room. All the while, God was hanging on a cross. We listened to the last words. We heard him declare, "It is finished." And it was over, all of it, completed. He said so himself. And even in this moment, when the tomb is empty and an angel declares he is not here, he is risen, there is still fear and confusion. Why isn't he here? Where is he? Why can't we see him? In Mark's Gospel, the resurrection leaves a Jesus-sized hole in the story. And the scary part is that we are invited to step into that space. The resurrection is an invitation to follow in faith, to journey, going wherever Jesus might lead us. Mark doesn't need to say any more. This is all we get. And this is all we need. Jesus is risen. It's a statement of fact and a statement of faith. He's not here. He is risen. And that leaves one huge question. Do you believe it? And if you do, then should we not at least be a little bit terrified? Stepping into that gap is called discipleship. Jesus has gone ahead. You have all that you need. You've heard what he said. You've watched what he did. You've seen how he stood in opposition to oppression, to injustice, to hatred, to anger, to jealousy, to lies, and even to death. You've seen how all of these powers work, these kingdoms of the world, where people grasp at wealth and greed and ambition and position and authority. These kingdoms of the world, they hold no sway over joy and peace and patience and goodness. They hold no power over hope and over love. Mark's story of the resurrection is the start of a pathway. It's a compass bearing for us to follow. It's an invitation to step into a new way of living, following a dead man who's alive. Now go. Go because the story is not finished. Go because he's not here. He is risen. And he goes ahead of you and invites each of us to follow. So go. Go because hope is real. Go because love wins. Go because Jesus is alive. Go.